A basic issue that often comes up is whether the attorney can help find or obtain the financing, distribution, and other items with regard to a picture, particularly at the development stage when it's necessary in order to get to production. It is true that the lawyer will often have ideas as to a financing structure. In other words, might the financing be put together by a so-called gap loan, perhaps an advance from a foreign sale or other distributor, a tax-driven credit arrangement with one of the states in the United States, and there are about 7 or 8 of them that now provide such funding, whether or not you can obtain cash for production against those credits and how you do that, and then pure good old-fashioned equity financing. Whether the lawyer can do this is something that is dangerous, because the lawyer does not want to represent, don't worry about a thing, chickie baby, I can get all the money. That, of course, is a phony claim. On the other hand, if a picture looks as if it might make sense to produce the picture in Louisiana, or these days Connecticut, New York, Michigan, New Mexico, a number of other states, Oregon, where these credits might be available, the lawyer might be able to guide or suggest that possibility. Now, has he found that financing? Not necessarily. What he's done is he's tuned the client into the possibility of obtaining some of the finance from that source. And that might be anywhere from 20 to 40% of the financing of a picture, which is very significant. The other possibility, another possibility, is the so-called gap loan. The gap loan made by an experienced bank that knows the entertainment and independent distribution business is something that can be obtained from time to time, but there are a number of conditions, some of which are difficult. For example, let's say that a particular bank will provide, under the right circumstances and the right conditions, 15 to 20% of the budget of a picture. Under those circumstances, the question is, what does the bank require? Normally, the bank will require a foreign sale agent that is reliable, that they have the sense from an administration standpoint, from a standpoint of honesty, and from a standpoint of sales capacity, is a good sales agent that they have comfort with. Then they will usually require that 1 or 2 pre-sales actually be made with regard to the picture. That means that usually the foreign sale guy will say, wait a minute, who's going to be the lead in this picture? Which means you then have to either get a formal or informal commitment from an actor, which gets into the whole issue about the extent to which you have to commit financially on a so-called pay-or-play basis to the actor in order to be able to use his name so that the foreign sale person can go out there and make 1 or 2 pre-sales and undertake the foreign sale obligation. That then gets into what is commonly referred to as the chicken and egg. The chicken of the actor, the egg of the money. And the point is that there are times when, with the proper relationship, often through a director attached to the project, you can get an indication of interest from the actor, and that, or sometimes more than one actor, and that may be adequate for the foreign sale person to say, okay, I think we can go out and pre-sell this. However, that often depends upon the stature of the producer. Is the foreign sale agent sufficiently comfortable with the producer to feel that that informal commitment by the actor or actors will follow through, so that when they make a deal with a big distributor in France or Germany as the basis for this gap loan, that they don't have the embarrassment that later the picture doesn't happen. And they have to go back to that person and say, oh, never mind, we don't really have the picture. All of those things have to be considered and structured, and very frankly, the lawyer can often help with regard to that issue, sometimes as to credibility, sometimes as to how the arrangement is made that gives comfort, sufficient comfort to the foreign sale agent and ultimately to the bank. Let's assume for the moment that that's overcome. You might then have a loan which would be 15 to 20% of the cost of the picture, and then you might have from one of the states, or by the way, there are still some foreign operations which give tax shelter, for example, Australia, but almost everything would have to be done in Australia. And in most of these states, everything would, or most things would have to be done in the state. Then you might have, in addition to the 15 to 20%, you might have as much as 20 to 30, 35%, maybe even 40% of the remaining financing. You might, by this means, get 50 or 55%, 45 to 55% of the financing from these sources, and then talk to your equity investor, or have your equity investor condition his investment on these things happening. And under those circumstances, the equity investor might be benefited by the fact that the money that might be advanced by the state is so-called soft money. What is soft money? Soft money is that a credit that's obtained from a state or government which does not have to be recouped. Thus, let's say it's a 30% credit that goes into the picture. Now, when the investor puts his money up, he only has to recoup 70% of the cost of the picture to start getting his money back, to get his money back, which is a huge advantage. So all these things have to be weighed in terms of the process of talking to investors. And the lawyer can help, but again, it's not, it is true that in my practice at times I've gotten lucky and found the full finance. It just kind of serendipitously has happened. But it's not something that I would ever undertake or promise. Lawyers are not investment bankers. But since we're involved in so many transactions and see so many sources, which we have to try to keep up with, we may be able to find a structure and a potential source that may substantially help on the financing side.